Stop. If you work until you are 65 years old, statistically, you will die at 67. 2 years of retirement for 40 years of labor. This isn't a conspiracy theory. This is the result of an actuarial analysis from the Boeing Aerospace Company, which covered thousands of former employees. People who retired at 50 lived to be 86 on average. Those who ground away until 65, they didn't make it to their 70th birthday. For every year worked after 55, you lost 2 years of life. In the next 15 minutes, you'll learn why corporations and governments have declared war on people who want to retire at 40. Why, in 2025, China forced social networks to remove content about lying flat. And why the most dangerous person for the system is someone who has capital and free time. This isn't about laziness. This is about survival. The year is 2002. Engineer and actuary Sing Lin publishes data on the life expectancy of former Boeing Aerospace employees. He analyzes the number of pension checks paid out by the company. The numbers read like a death sentence. The graph is a cliff. Employees who retired at 50 average life expectancy, 86 years. At 55, 83 years. At 60, 78 years. At 65, 67 years. See a pattern? Now, here's the honest part that most bloggers leave out. Boeing itself disputed these findings. The company's actuaries claimed that Lin's data didn't account for the healthy worker survivor effect. People who could afford to leave at 50 were healthier and wealthier to begin with. It's not a peer-reviewed study. It's an analysis of pension checks. But here's what matters. Even if the real difference isn't 19 years, but 8 or 10, the direction is undeniable. Dozens of independent studies confirm that chronic work stress shortens your life. Your body runs on cortisol and deadlines. When that external pressure vanishes, the body often just gives up. 2 years of retirement for 40 years of work, even if it's an exaggeration, isn't a reward. It's a warning. But here's the strange part. Sing Lin's data was published back in 2002. It appeared in a few specialized journals. It was discussed among actuaries and financial planners. And then it just disappeared. No large-scale follow-up studies. No big headlines on CNN or in the Wall Street Journal. Silence. Why? Hold that question in your mind. In about 10 minutes, everything will fall into place. Now meet Michael. It's a fake name, but the story is real. A composite of several people I've talked to. Michael was a senior developer at a tech startup in San Francisco. Salary $185,000 a year. Stock options. Free lunches. Massage chairs in the office. The American dream, right? At 28, Michael stumbled upon a blog about the FIRE movement. Financial independence. Retire early. The philosophy is almost absurdly simple. Live on 30 to 40% of your income, invest the rest, retire at 40. He started crunching the numbers. If he saved $7,500 a month, with an average portfolio return of 7% per year in 12 years, he'd have roughly $1.5 million. That would generate about $60,000 a year in passive income, using the 4% rule. That's more than the average American earns by working. Michael moved from downtown San Francisco to Oakland. He sold his BMW and bought a 2016 Toyota Camry. He stopped going to $200 dinners. He cooked at home. He wore the same jacket for 3 years. His colleagues laughed. You're making almost 200 grand and you live like a student? What for? Michael just shrugged. So that in 10 years, I don't have to ask my boss for permission to take a day off. Fast forward to China. 2021. The Tangping movement, lying flat, is gaining momentum among young people. Millions of Chinese, aged 20 to 35, are publicly rejecting the career rat race. They don't want to work 12-hour days for an apartment they'll never be able to afford. Bloggers are writing manifestos. I don't want to be a workhorse. I'd rather live modestly, but freely. The state's reaction was immediate. Censors started deleting posts, blocking accounts. State media labeled Tangping supporters emotional predators and traitors to the national interest. One commentator for the official Xinhua news agency wrote, "Young people must understand, if everyone lies down, who will build a great China? think that was the end of it? In 2025, the Cyberspace Administration of China issued a directive requiring social platforms to filter content promoting lying flat and other negative worldviews. The algorithms on WeChat and Douyin are now tuned to suppress such posts before they're even published. And in Taiwan, as a form of protest, they held a public lying down competition. People competed to see who could lie still the longest. The winner lasted 33 hours. Can you feel what's happening here? The system got scared. Truly scared. Because a thinking, financially independent person is a threat. Not to society, but to those who run society. Here's the dirty secret of the modern economy. It doesn't need free people. It needs indebted consumers. A person with a 30-year mortgage is guaranteed to show up at the office. A person with a car loan on a $65,000 Lexus won't quit after a fight with the boss. A person who upgrades their iPhone every year and carries Louis Vuitton bags will work until they are 65. And then they'll die earlier than they planned. This benefits corporations. But there's another layer. Pharmaceutical companies don't benefit from your health. They benefit from managing your symptoms. Chronic work stress is a global antidepressant market worth $22 billion in 2025, projected to grow to $31 billion by 2030. Insomnia means sleeping pills. Burnout means tranquilizers. A healthy, financially independent 45-year-old who does yoga, gets enough sleep, and doesn't suffer from chronic stress? That's a lost customer. Now scale that up to millions. If 10% of Americans retired at 40 to 45, here's what would collapse. Consumer credit. The commercial real estate market, empty offices. The automotive industry. Premium retail. Pharmaceuticals. Do you understand the scale of the threat? The FIRE movement isn't just a lifestyle trend. It's a systemic challenge to consumer capitalism. And this is where the darkest part of the story begins. Because the system's defenders launched a counterattack. Not through bans, that would be too obvious. Through manipulation of the mind. They convinced people that freedom is boring. Have you ever heard this argument? What will you do when you retire at 40? Lie on the beach? You'll go crazy with boredom in a month. This is the main mistake critics of early retirement make. They confuse freedom with idleness. They project their own lack of internal motivation onto everyone else. Listen carefully. When a person meets their basic needs through capital, they don't degrade. They move up to higher levels of finding fulfillment. There are 4 stages, and most people get stuck on the second. Stage 1, taking to take. A child grabs a toy, it feels good. Primitive but honest. Stage 2, giving to get. You work, you get paid. You smile at the boss, you get promoted. 95% of adults are stuck here for their entire lives. Stage 3, giving to give. Selfless help. Creating without monetizing it. Raising kids, not just to check a box. Stage 4, taking to give. The highest form. You accept something to bring joy to another person. Paradoxically, this is where true meaning is born. People in stage 2 cannot imagine stages 3 and 4. For them, life without external pressure is an empty void. Because they've never developed internal motivation. Something strange has happened in the last 20 years. Society has equated constant busyness with success. If you have no time, you must be important. If your calendar is booked with meetings 3 weeks out, you must be in demand. Free time became a sign of failure. Psychologists even have a term for it: urgency addiction. It's when a person physically cannot relax without an external deadline or a notification. Try an experiment. Give the average office worker from New York or Los Angeles 3 free days. No tasks, no phone, no plans. After 6 hours, the anxiety will start. After 12 hours, panic. I'm wasting time. I need to be productive. The system turned rest into work. You don't just rest. You optimize recovery. You don't just sleep. You track your sleep cycles. You don't just take a walk. You get your 10,000 steps in for health. Every aspect of life has become a KPI. And when you tell these people, retire at 42, they ask, but what would I even do? The answer terrifies them. Anything you want. without justification, without reporting, without guilt. That is freedom. And most people are afraid of it. A healthy human being needs the right to be inefficient. Read that again. Modern society has digitized everything. Calories, steps, hours of sleep, minutes of meditation, liters of water, number of meetings, daily to-do lists. You've turned your life into a spreadsheet. And now you can't turn off the tracker. One of the most radical acts of freedom in 2026 is to do nothing. Just sit. Look out the window. Don't scroll. Don't read a self-improvement book. Don't plan. Boredom isn't a bug. It's a feature. It's in those moments of empty time that the brain generates its most breakthrough ideas. Neuroscientists call it the default mode network. Marcus Rakel from Washington University in St. Louis proved that when you're not doing anything, your brain doesn't shut off. It switches into a mode of deep internal work. When you're constantly busy, this mode is blocked. You're functioning, but you're not thinking. Look at the great scientists, writers, and artists. On the surface, they seemed lazy. Albert Einstein would sit and stare at the ceiling for hours. Isaac Newton could stay in his room for 3 days just thinking. In a modern office, they'd be called unproductive. But it was owning their own time that gave them the space for genius. And now, the most uncomfortable question. What if everything you've saved up by 40 becomes worthless? Here's the reality the FIRE gurus don't talk about. The classic model, save 1.5 million in index funds and live off 4%, has worked for the last 40 years. But we are entering an era where the rules are being rewritten. Inflation, devaluation, central bank digital currencies, potential withdrawal limits, capital taxes. In 2024, at the G20 summit in Brazil, economist Gabriel Zuckman presented a plan for a global tax on extreme wealth, a minimum of 2% per year. France, Spain, Colombia, and South Africa supported the idea. In the U.S., Elizabeth Warren has pushed for a similar tax on fortunes over $50 million. Today, it's billionaires. Tomorrow, the threshold will drop. Imagine. You saved for 15 years, you took risks, you denied yourself, and the government says, sorry, there's a crisis, we need 2% a year. In 20 years, your capital is cut by a third. Even without inflation, the ones who survive won't be those with the biggest savings. The ones who survive will be those who can adapt quickly. Capital isn't the goal. It's a tool for developing flexibility. If you retire at 42 thinking, that's it, I'm free, time to do nothing, you're at risk. If you retire and use that freedom to develop new skills, create multiple income streams, build a community, you'll survive any reset. Having free time at 40 isn't the finish line. It's the starting line. And this brings us to the most toxic aspect of all, the crab bucket syndrome. When one crab tries to climb out of the bucket, the others pull it back down. Not because it helps them, but because they can't stand someone else's success. It's a biological program. People with a take everything and redistribute it mindset will always hate investors. It doesn't matter that the investor worked 70-hour weeks for 20 years, took risks, saved 60% of their income, slept on a friend's couch to save on rent. They see the result, and they demand fairness. He lives off dividends and does nothing, and I'm slaving away. They ignore a simple fact. Capital works. An investor's money isn't sitting there useless. It's financing roads through bonds, creating jobs through stocks, launching startups through venture capital. The rentier pays taxes, creates demand, supports the economy, but that requires an understanding that the envious lack. Don't argue with them, ever. You can't convince an envious person with logic because their position isn't based on logic. It's based on emotion. Let's go back to the stages. Most critics of FIRE are stuck in stage 2. Giving to get. For them, happiness equals a paycheck, a pat on the head from the boss, likes on social media, external validation. When you say, I'll live off my capital and do what I love, they don't get it. Who's going to pay you? Who's going to evaluate your effort? The answer is no one. And that's the beauty of it. Stages 3 and 4 are about living without external judges. You do something because it resonates with your own inner truth. Writing a book no one will buy. Tutoring the neighbor's kids in math for free. Restoring old cars. Growing a garden. No KPIs. No metrics. No performance reviews. Just meaning. Here's what no one tells you about early retirement. The goal isn't to just lie down under a palm tree. The goal is to replace the word have to with the word want to. I have to go to work becomes I want to work on this project. I have to deal with this client becomes I want to help this person. I have to make money becomes I want to create something valuable. It's a fundamental transformation. People who own their time might look lazy on the outside. They don't rush around. They don't brag about being busy. They don't participate in the rat race. But they are the ones who have ideas that change the world. Because freedom isn't the absence of work. It's the presence of choice. So, what do you do with this information? First, don't argue with the haters. Their biology is stronger than their logic. Second, practice de-optimization. Set aside 1 day a week with no plans, no trackers, no tasks. Learn to do nothing without feeling guilty. Third, prepare for an economic reset. Don't just focus on accumulating money. Focus on adaptability, new skills, community, health. Fourth, guard your time more fiercely than your money. Overwork isn't a badge of honor. It's a symptom of a poorly organized life. Remember the Boeing data? Even if the exact number is different from what Sing Lin reported, the trend is clear. The longer you postpone your freedom, the less life you'll have left to enjoy it. 2 years of freedom for 40 years of slavery. Is that really the deal you want? Leave a comment. At what age do you plan to retire? And what will you do in your first free year? And if this video made you think, hit like and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.